कराग्रे वसते लक्ष्मी करमध्ये सरस्वती करमूले तु गौरिः प्रभाते करदर्शनम्। कराग्रे वसते लक्ष्मी करमध्ये सरस्वती करमूले तु गौरिः प्रभाते करदर्शनम्। कराग्रे वसते लक्ष्मी करमध्ये सरस्वती करमूले तु गौरिः प्रभाते करदर्शनम्। कराग्रे वसते लक्ष्मी करमध्ये सरस्वती करमूले तु गौरिः प्रभाते करदर्शनम्। Namaskaram. Let's begin once again with 3 chants of Om. Today is Masa Shivaratri, so we will sing Trayambakam and also Sarva Mangala Mangalye. Aum Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushti Vardhanam Urvaruka Miva Bandhanan Mritya Mokshiya Mamrutat. Aum Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadhike Sharanye Trambake Gauri Narayani Namostute. Shambho Shankar Uma Maheshwar Gauri Priya Sadashiva. Hey Shambho Shankar Uma Maheshwar Gauri Priya Sadashiva. Hey Shambho Shankar Uma Maheshwar Gauri Priya Sadashiva. Gangadaram Rishikeshwaram Aumkaram Vaheguru. Shambho Shankar Uma Maheshwar Gauri Priya Sadashiva. Om Namah Shivaya. Aum Hreem Shri Jaya Durgayai Namaha. Aum Namo Bhagavate Rudraya. Aum Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Mahadev. Everybody is familiar with Mahashivaratri, which occurs once in a year. But this Masa Shivaratri, as the name suggests, happens every month, and one particular month it becomes the Mahashivaratri. It's very significant because it is the coming together of our masculine and feminine nature. Masculine and feminine doesn't mean a man and a woman. It essentially means the masculine nature and feminine nature within each one of us. So essentially we say that the left half of our body is feminine in nature and the right half is masculine in nature. And all the attributes that are traditionally considered to be masculine or feminine are within each one of us. So irrespective of whether we are a man or a woman, we are able to accomplish most of the tasks except a few bodily biological tasks. Most of the things at the other levels that we have talked about are all very common to all of us. There's absolutely no difference between these genders. It's very easy to remember which is the left and the right if you use the mnemonic that it's the feminine which has a heart, not the masculine. But of course, this is not at the body level. When we say half our body is feminine and other half is masculine, we are not talking of the physical body. We are talking of the subtle body. So at the subtle body where we have certain nadis going through, which are essentially like in the physical system, we have a nervous system. The nerves are going through and they are intersecting at various places. Similarly, in our subtle body, which consists of the mind and the intellect, that subtle body has certain subtle nerves going through, which we call as nadis. Out of them, 3 very important nadis are there, which go through our spinal cord. This is again, we are talking about the physical spinal cord, but as the spinal cord in the subtle body. So these 3, one is called as the Ida, which is the feminine energy pathway. And then there is the Pingala, which is the masculine energy pathway. And then there is the Sushumna, which tries to balance the 2. And then these 3 nadis are actually intersecting at various places, which is what we call as those chakras, Mooladhara chakra, Swadhisthana chakra, etc. Because when they meet, when the masculine and the feminine meet, essentially creativity is ensured. And that creativity is the energy of Ganesha, energy of Muruga, energy of Ayyappa, energy of Lakshmi Narayana, energy of Saraswati Brahma, the energy of Parvati, and the energy of Shiva, and beyond the Matru Pitru, and then finally the Guru Chakra. So as you know, chakra is also used to refer to a wheel. So essentially what we are talking about is a motion. So these wherever the junction happens, a motion is enabled where you can easily transition yourself from being in a Ganesha mode to being in a Muruga mode. And then you can transition yourself back again to Ganesha mode, depending upon what particular work that I need to do. Some works will require a lot of courage and valor, deep perception. Those things we typically do from a Muruga mode. We become Muruga to do that. And then when we require more of stillness, stability, we require patience, we require a lot of knowledge and wisdom, then we go into the Ganesha mode and start operating from there. It's similar with the other chakras also. We will see that. Again, between these, once again, there is a correlation between the chakras. The first 5 chakras are associated with the body, mind, intellect, prana, and the Atma. Now, the body is associated essentially with the Mooladhara chakra. So, essentially, if you have any problems related to the body, by focusing on the Mooladhara chakra and essentially meditating upon Ganesha Tattva, we most of the bodily issues can be healed, along with appropriate mudras, which we will learn from tomorrow's session, where we will, more than the theory part, we will have a small part of the theory, but more than the theory part, we'll get into the practical aspects of doing certain things, certain practices, and that's essentially what we will do for almost next 5 days. With our concentration will be back later on the theory to see how this practice and the theory eventually correlate with each other. So that's the general way in which we will proceed with this. So the body or this ring finger is essentially associated with the earth element, as I said, and it's associated with the Muladhara chakra. The mind is associated with the Swadhisthana chakra. So any psychological issues that anybody might be facing, just by meditating on the Muruga Tattva at the Saravana Bhava, Kartikeya, whatever you might want to call it, this particular entity that you yourself are. So you can focus on that, and most of the issues related to the psychology can be easily transcended. Then, and that's why we say Om, the form of Om is Ganesha, but the sound of Om is Muruga. So usually with Muruga, you see that either in Tamil or Sanskrit Om, which covers the Muruga, whatever deity Vigraha that we have, that is essentially to showcase that even by chanting Om, it's equivalent to chanting Muruga's name or any of the Muruga bhajans or Muruga songs, Tirupugar or Kandashashtika or some things like that. All of that can very easily handle any psychological issues. And that's associated with our Swadhisthana chakra. Then coming to the intellect, which is associated with fire element. This is water element. So this is fire element. It's associated with Ayyappa at our Manipura chakra. And for example, little children who might have trouble with their studies, or people who in their work or profession need to use a lot of their intellect but are unable to meet the requirements, be it higher level students, lower level students, or even teachers and professors, today being Teachers' Day. So all of them can focus on that particular Ayyappa Tattva at the Manipura, and this fiery intellect can become even more fiery and sharper to be able to do certain intellectual tasks. Then we come to the Anahata Chakra, or the Lakshmi Narayana, or the air principle, and that is essentially over here. And this is basically if you have any issues related to your wealth or income, or inability to pay off debts, etc., or to sustain what you have already have, let's say the resources like relationships, etc., then you essentially focus on that Lakshmi Narayana Tattva at the heart chakra, which is Anahata. And then finally the Vishuddhi chakra, because these are the only 5 which are associated with elements. So we already said earth, water, fire, air, and space-time. So space-time is the final element. The final frontier is crossed. Then you are beyond the elements. So at these 2 chakras, you are beyond the elements. So this is essentially our bliss body, which is essentially the Saraswati Brahma principle. So almost anything related to spirituality, you have to cross this barrier in order to eventually go to the Parvati and Shiva Tattva, which is what we celebrated through the bhajans that we started today's session with by saying Om Namah Parvati Pataye Har Har Mahadev. Vishuddhi Chakranirது நம்ம கழுத்து தொண்டை கிட்ட இருக்கக்கூடிய விஷயம். ஸோ இது வந்துட்டு நம்மளுடைய சத்தம் வர்றதுக்கு, ஆர்டிஸ்டிக் எபிலிட்டிஸ்க்கு, க்ரியேட்டிவ் எபிலிட்டிஸ்க்கு எல்லாத்துக்குமே இது பாத்வே ஆகுது. இது வந்துட்டு நம்மளுடைய 4 எலிமெண்ட்ஸ் ஆல்ரெடி சொன்னோம் இல்லையா, அதாவது எர்த், வாட்டர், ஃபயர் அண்ட் ஏர். ஸோ இதுங்கெல்லாம் ஆக்சுவல் மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் தட் யூ கேன் சி, பட் தீஸ் மெட்டீரியல்ஸ் ஹாவ் டு பி இன் அ சர்டன் ஸ்பேஸ் அண்ட் சர்டன் டைம். அதாவது சில இடம் தேவை, அதுக்கு சில காலம் தேவை, அதாவது சமயத்துக்கு பிரகாரமாக அது நடந்துக்கணும். அதனால தான் சவுண்டு கூட இட்ஸ் சம்திங் தட் இட்ஸ் அ வேவ், ஒரு இப்படி மேலே கீழே போகக்கூடிய ஒரு இது, அது வந்துட்டு சமயத்து கூட மாறப்படுது. So that is essentially what we are talking about here, which is the Saraswati Brahma principle. So overall, generally we say the lower chakras are creativity, but this is a different kind of creativity. This is material creativity. Inga Vandaprama, you are getting into a spiritual creativity. You are manifesting things which are normally not manifested. So many people, you would see the, saints performing many miracles in the Sai Baba Charitra. Also, you will listen to many stories of what all miracles Sai Baba did. All those are actually essential technologies which all of us are capable of if we cross our Vishuddhi chakra and come to the Agnya chakra. By focusing on this, the other health aspects also around this particular place can also be handled very easily, because this, even though all these chakras that we are talking about are in the subtle body, they are having a one-to-one mapping with the physical body. So any issues related to the legs or lower parts of the body can typically be handled by focusing on the Mooladhara chakra. Those associated with the reproductive organs can be handled by looking at the Swadhisthana chakra, just observing and meditating at that stage. Anything associated, any problems which might be associated with, let's say, the digestive system, the digestive fire, you can handle by focusing on your Manipuraka chakra with the Ayyappa mantras, or meditating on Ayyappa. Anything you have problem with money or wealth or income, debts, etc., all those things can be handled by focusing on your Lakshmi Narayana Tattva. I'm just giving the one main thing associated with each. There are many subtle aspects associated with each. If we go on, it will go into too much of detail. Similarly, when you have any issues with understanding things, or understanding concepts, understanding people, and correlating with them, or you're not able to express your inherent artistic abilities in a particular way, or your creativity in a particular way, so then essentially you get into the Vishuddhi chakra. But even more significantly, this Vishuddhi chakra helps you to transcend the materialistic thoughts of ours all the time to more spiritual thoughts, so that when we go up there and come back, we are in a very different phase how we deal with the materialistic things also. So it's not that you cross this and you're always in a spiritual frame of mind. You're essentially seeing the reality, glimpses of reality, and we keep coming down. As long as we live within this physical body, we have to keep coming up and down. It's like every, I think I gave this example earlier also in a different context. Every inhalation has to be followed by an exhalation. Similarly, every ascent in our observation or witnessing of each one of these chakras has to be followed by coming down to the back to the Mooladhara chakra. So that's essentially that meditative aspect that we are talking about. That இது வந்துட்டு நம்ம ப்ராக்டிக்கலாக யூட்டிலைஸ் பண்ணக்கூடிய விஷயம். ஏன்னாக்கா see essentially I'll just tell it and then we will come back and explain that. Tanatrayati iti tantraha, manatrayati iti mantraha, Yanatrayati iti yantraha, Pavanatrayati iti patraha, Swayamtrayati iti swatantraha. So typically people know about these three things, but this is something that just came to me while I was explaining to you, to be in conjecture with the others. We talk about what is known as tantra, mantra, yantra, etc. Most people have a lot of misconceptions about these things. These are all extremely useful tools in order to accomplish a lot of things. So any of these kriyas that are being performed are essentially tantra. And tantra is also, the word itself essentially means technology. So when we use a technology that is known to everybody, it seems like very simple. But there are certain technologies which only through spiritual practices we gain, which seems like miracles to others, but is actually possible for everybody. Once they have certain spiritual sadhanas, spiritual practices, they are able to transcend and achieve those things. So that is essentially Tantra. But another way of looking at Tantra is Tanatrayati iti tantraha. Tan means, even in Hindi, tan means body. So it's associated with the physical body. Trayati means protect. That which protects the body is tantra. that manatrayati iti mantra, that which protects the mind is mantra, the mantra sounds that we recite. Many of the sounds would have meanings, but there are also very powerful sounds which do not have any literary meaning to it. It's just the sound vibration alone that is important over there. That is manatrayati iti mantra. The mind is protected by the sound energy of the mantra. Similarly, yanatrayati iti yantra. Yantra is essentially geometries, starting with a triangle, then circles and things like that. You have certain combinations associated with each one of these energies, and just by focusing on that geometry, we can increase our intellectual capacities. So that's essentially the yantra aspect of it. And geometry is very, very critical. It's not just what materials we are made out of, but how we arrange them. I think I gave an example of the cooking ingredients also, in terms of the proportions, how you put it. And even, let's say, a building you construct, or anything decoration that you make, even a flower decoration for a picture of a deity. If there is a particular symmetry, how it is in the left side, if it's on the right side also, then it gives a certain beauty to it. So geometry plays a very, very important role in handling a lot of aspects of our body. So அதனால நம்ம உக்காரும் போது கூட, நின்னுட்டு இருக்கும் போது, இல்லை நடக்கும் போது, every now and then நம்ம நினச்சி பார்த்துக்கணும், நம்ம ஒரு இதில் போயின்னு இருக்கிறோமான்ட்டு. That's why we say the posture is very, very important, whether it's sitting or standing or even lying down postures. Each one of them have so much of a significance, and without knowing all this, we are doing all kinds of things, especially when we sit on couches or whatever. We tend to put our body in extremely asymmetric positions. For short durations, it is okay. But if you do that very frequently for long durations, that affects not only your physical health, but even the mental health. It has all these are percolation. Even though for our understanding purpose, we are dividing these into 5 and talking about it. Essentially, they're all operating as a team, as I already said, and they're very closely, intricately related. For example, what food we eat will not only affect the body, it will affect the mind also. So similarly, all things are related. And again, food is not just what we put into our mouth. What we keep seeing also is any movies that we watch. Somebody who keeps on watching lots of horror movies might have a different kind of a mindset, because that is the food through the eyes. It's not food only through the mouth, food also through the ears. What we keep listening more often, what kind of music we listen to, what kind of people we listen to, all these things matter. Or if we live in a very, very noisy environment, too much of construction noise, or let's say you live close to an airport, lot of the aircraft noise, all these things are going to affect not only the hearing abilities, but also the emotional aspects of you, the intellectual aspects of you. So it kind of percolates through that. So நம்ம எது சாப்பிட்றோன்றது மாத்திரம் முக்கியம் இல்லை, எது பார்க்குறோம், எது கேட்குறோம், எது மோந்து பார்க்குறோம், என்ன மாதிரி ஸ்மெல் அட்மாஸ்ஃபியரில் இருக்கிறோம். ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள், யூ கெட் யூஸ் டு இட். சம் ஆஃப் தீஸ் பீப்புள் லைக் ஜானிட்டர்ஸ், டாய்லெட்ஸ் எல்லாம் க்ளீன் பண்ணுறவங்க, தேர் பிகம் ஓவர் டைம் லிட்டில் இன்சென்சிட்டிவ் டு தட் கைண்ட் ஆஃப் அ ஸ்மெல். தே வில் நாட் ஃபீல் as bad as we do when they go into such stinking environment. So it's a question of our body gets adapted and adjusted to different environments of our workplace or our residence. But wherever possible, we have to keep all of these in a purified way, whether it is the kind of sights that you have, the kind of pictures that you put up, or whatever, the kind of sounds that are there. As far as possible, silence is best. But if you want to have some sound, some nice mantra or some music, melodious music, not you can listen to very fast and rock or rock kind of music for short durations, but not for very long periods of time and day after day. If you keep on doing that, then there is a certain effect on the how your mind tends to behave, how your intellect tends to behave. Or you can try to compensate that. If your profession itself involves that kind of music, then you have no choice, but you can always compensate for that by having more time for your silence than others would, so that you kind of bring in that balance to you. And so then I was talking about Tantra, next is Mantra, and Yantra is this design or geometries. So the geometry is extremely important. The எப்படி அரேஞ்ச் பண்ணுறோம்ன்றது ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டண்ட். எப்படி உங்களுக்கு சமையலில் வேறு வேறு இதுங்க இன்க்ரீடியன்ட்ஸ் எவ்வளோக்கு எவ்வளோ போடணும் ப்ரொப்போர்ஷன் இம்பார்ட்டண்ட்டோ, எப்படி ஒரு கடவுளுடைய விக்கிரகத்துக்கோ ஃபோட்டோக்கோ நம்ம மாலை மாட்டுறது சிமெட்ரிக்காக மாட்டுறது இம்பார்ட்டண்ட்டோ, அதே போலனா நம்ம பாடி கூட போஸ்டர் மெயின்டைன் பண்ணிக்கிறது, உக்காரும் போது எப்படி உக்காந்துக்கிறோம், கொஞ்சம் நேரம் இப்படி அப்படி போனோம்னாக்கா பரவாயில்ல, கூன் போட்டுன்னு எதுனா பண்ணாக்கா, பட் ஆன அளவுக்கு நம்ம அந்த சிமெட்ரி மெயின்டைன் பண்ணுறது அவ்வளோ நல்லது. அதனால தான் எல்லா ஆசனாங்க கூட நம்ம பண்ணுறது எல்லாமே சர்டன் பேலன்ஸ் கொண்டு வரும், லெஃப்ட் சைடுக்கும் ரைட் சைடுக்கும். லெஃப்ட் சைடுக்கு எது பண்ணாலும் ரைட் சைடுக்கும் அதுவே பண்ணுவோம், ஆல்மோஸ்ட் சேம் டியூரேஷனுக்கு. ஸோ அந்த ஈக்குவல் டெவலப்மெண்ட் தேவை. அந்த பேலன்ஸ் இருந்தால் தான் நம்ம ஸ்டேபிளாக இருக்க முடியும். பேலன்ஸ் இல்லைனாக்கா அந்த ஸ்டெபிலிட்டி வராது நம்மளுக்கு. ஃபிசிக்கல் ஸ்டெபிலிட்டி இல்லைனாக்கா எமோஷ்னல் ஸ்டெபிலிட்டி வர்றது கொஞ்சம் கஷ்டம், இன்டெலெக்சுவல் ஸ்டெபிலிட்டி வர்றது கஷ்டம். ஸோ அதனால் நம்ம பேஸ் ஃபவுண்டேஷன்லேருந்து நம்ம ஸ்ட்ராங்காக பண்ணோம்னா தான் வீடு கூட கட்டும் போது நல்ல நல்ல மாதிரி ஸ்ட்ராங்காக ரொம்ப வருஷத்துக்கு வாழும். அதே மாதிரி தான் நம்மளும் ஆயுஸ் நல்லியும் இருக்கணும்னாக்கா நம்ம மைண்டெல்லாம் எதுவும் சைக்கலாஜிக்கல் ப்ராப்ளம்ஸ் இல்லாமல் நல்லா வயசானவருக்கு கூட நல்லா யூட்டிலைஸ் பண்ணிக்கிறதுக்கு, ரிலேஷன்ஷிப்ஸ்க்கு அஸ் வெல் அஸ் இன்டெலெக்சுவல் ஒர்க்குக்கு, எல்லாத்துக்குமே க்ரியேட்டிவ் ஒர்க்குக்கு எல்லாத்துக்குமே உபயோகமாகும். அதனால எவ்வளோக்கு எவ்வளோ நம்ம உள்ளே போடுறது முக்கியமோ, வாயில், காதில், கண்ணில், மூக்கில் தொடுறது கூட, இது தொடுறோம். இப்போ பெரிய ரிஷிங்க இவங்கெல்லாம் பார்த்தீங்கன்னாக்கா யூஸ்வலாக வந்தாக்கா அவங்களுக்கு தனியாக அவங்களதே டிசைபிள்ஸ் வந்துட்டு ஒரு துணி எதுனா வச்சுருப்பாங்க, அந்த துணி போட்டுட்டு அது மேலே தான் உக்காருவாங்க. நான் இவங்க ரொம்ப ஓவராக கிளென்லினஸ் பார்க்குறாங்களே அப்படின்னு நினச்சிக்கோம். பட் அது வந்துட்டு ஃபிசிக்கல் கிளென்லினஸ்க்காக அது இல்லை. தேர்ஸ் லாட் ஆஃப் சென்சிட்டிவிட்டி. நம்ம ஸ்பிரிச்சுவல் ஆவோ we can very easily absorb things in any environment that we go to. ஸோ அதனால நம்ம ஓரளவுக்கு கேர்ஃபுல்லாக இருக்கணும். இஷ்டத்துக்கு எது வேணால் தொடுறது, எது வேணால் இது பண்ணுறது, அந்த மாதிரி இது கொஞ்சம் கொஞ்சமாக நம்ம கான்ஷியஸ் ஆக ஆரம்பிச்சிடுறோம். ஏன்னாக்கா இட் டசன்ட் அஃபெக்ட் அஸ் ஒன்லி ஃபிசிக்கலி. இஃப் ஐ டச் சம்திங் விச் இஸ் டர்ட்டி, இட் நாட் only மேக்ஸ் மை ஹேண்ட் டர்ட்டி, பட் தேர் ஆர் certain vibrations associated with that dirt which can affect the way you think, the way you feel and things like that. Of course, you bring in a certain emotional strength, you can handle those things. There's no problem with that. But why unnecessarily take it and then try to handle it? If it is possible to avoid doing certain things, it's best to avoid it. Prevention is better than cure. So even though by enhancing our spiritual practices and our spiritual nature, we are able to handle anything and everything very easily, we will not unnecessarily take it up just because I can handle it. So we will try to avoid certain things which are generally, and this is also associated with promiscuity. When people move around with lots of boyfriends or girlfriends and things like that, essentially it's not only about the bodily or sexual health that can get affected, it's also the emotional backlog that is there. It can continue for a much longer period of time. So that's very important that we minimize these kinds of things. We can interact with people at other levels. People think only body to body relationship is important. No, these are far more important. How you relate with people emotionally, and especially as we grow to, let's say, middle age or old age, then the other aspects become far more important. So we have to start focusing on those aspects as well. So essentially what we are talking about is all of these are our own dimensions, and even if one of them gets affected, the other will get affected. So let's take care of each one of them in an appropriate way. So then we talked about yantra. Next is patra. பாத்திரனாக்கா பாத்திரம், நம்ம தமிழில் கூட பாத்திரம்னு சொல்கிறோம். பாத்திரம் இஸ் அ வெசல், யூட்டென்சில். ஸோ அந்த வெசலில் வந்துட்டு யூ கண்டெயின் சர்டன் திங்ஸ், ரைட்? லைக் அந்த மாதிரி தான் நம்ம வந்துட்டு லைஃப் பிரெத்தை வந்துட்டு நம்ம லங்ஸில் அப்படி கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணுறோம், அதை ஸ்டோர் பண்ணுறோம். அந்த வெசலில் ஒரு பாத்திரத்தில் தண்ணி ஊற்றி வைக்கிற மாதிரி காற்றை ஊற்றி வச்சு அதை திரும்ப வெளியே அனுப்புகிறோம், திரும்ப உள்ளே எடுக்கிறோம். இது வந்துட்டு நம்ம இந்த பர்டிகுலர் பாத்திரம் வந்துட்டு இந்த லைஃப் எனர்ஜி பாத்திரம் ஒரு அக்ஷய பாத்திரம் மாதிரி. ஏன்னாக்கா தி ஏர் தட் வி ஆர் கெட்டிங் இன் இஸ் ஃப்ரம் சச் அ மேசிவ் பிளேஸ் அண்ட் தென் வி ஆர் getting it back to that. So what I breathe out, you might be breathing in a part of that, and what you breathe out, I'll be breathing in. So essentially we are sharing all these things, and more importantly, between trees and plants, which are generating during the daytime with photosynthesis, they're generating oxygen, taking in the carbon dioxide that we breathe out. And there's so much of a transaction happening that is essentially your life energy transactions that are taking place. And that is essentially protected by a pavana pavana. Pavana means something which is pure, and pavana is air. So a purified air is when you are in, let's say, a garden or in a forest kind of an environment, there's so much of pure air. You can see the difference when you come to a polluted street when you're walking or traveling in a two-wheeler. You can easily make out the differences it is making, not only to the physical body because of that respiration, but also the way people behave. You can see road rage, people driving very rashly and scolding each other, the other drivers, and things like that. All these things, many of these things are happening also because of the kind of air we breathe. So that's essentially that. And at the bliss body level, of course, swatantra. Just like we told at this stage, it is patra. This is swatantra. Swayam trayati iti swatantra. This is something that can be protected by itself. So there's nothing other than that. So who will it protect from? There is no even need for a protection, but it's swatantra also means liberation, which means freedom. So you're not under any control kind of a thing. And the word control is very interesting because a lot of people are asking, how can we control our mind? How can we control our mind? It is impossible to control the mind. So don't even try that. And why would you want to control? The whole idea of this spirituality is liberation. You want freedom. And when you want freedom, you do not want to control something. You want to regulate it. You want to make it within reasonable limits so that you're not having a lopsided development. ஒன்று மாத்திரம் வளர்றது மற்றது வளராது இருக்கக்கூடாது. எல்லாமே ஒன்றா வளர்றதுக்காக நம்ம அது எல்லாத்துக்கும் சில முக்கியத்துவம் கொடுக்குறோம். ஸோ அந்த பிரகாரம் போகும்போது நம்ம மனசை வந்துட்டு கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணக்கூடாது, அது ரெகுலேட் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணணும். அந்த மனசை எப்படி நம்ம ரெகுலேட் பண்ணுறதுன்னா அதுக்கு தான் மந்திரம்னு சொன்னோம். ஸோ மந்திர உச்சாரணை பண்ணோம் அந்த மனசு வந்துட்டு இட் அண்டர்ஸ்டாண்ட்ஸ் இட்ஸ் ரெஜீம். ஸோ இது வந்துட்டு இட் கேன் ப்ரொடெக்ட் இட் செல்ஃப். இட்ஸ் லைக் வி சே இன் டெமோக்ரஸி நான் சொல்கிறோம், ஃபார் த பீப்புள், பை த பீப்புள், ஆஃப் த பீப்புள்னு சொல்கிறோம் கவர்மெண்ட்டை. ஸோ அதே மாதிரி ஃபார் த செல்ஃப், ஆஃப் த செல்ஃப், பை த செல்ஃப், எனக்கு செல்ஃப் தவிர வேறு இன்னும் எதுவுமே இல்லை. பட் அந்த லெவல்லேருந்து நம்ம ஆப்ரேட் பண்ணின்னு இல்லை இப்போதைக்கு, மற்ற லெவலுங்கள்லேருந்து ஆப்ரேட் பண்ணின்னு இருக்கிறோம். அது அப்படி பண்ணும்போது வாட் வி நீட் டு டூ இஸ் வி ஹாவ் டு சி ஹவு ஆல் ஆஃப் தீஸ் கேன் பி ரெகுலேட்டட், அண்ட் தட்ஸ் வை வி ஹாவ் ஆல் தீஸ் tools. One is the tantra, where we use our body itself for the spiritual practice, like for example doing asana. It's using your body for the spiritual practice. So that is tanatrayati iti tantra. You're using your tan or body, and you're using your mind, because even though we start with the japa of in a loud way or actually by using your lips, but slowly this becomes a mental process. You're essentially repeating your mantra in your mind. So this is mantra is actually happening at that level. It's vibrating at the thought levels to reduce your unnecessary thoughts and bring your thoughts only to that which is necessary. So you're not unnecessarily focused on past memories or future imagination, feeling guilty about some things done in the past, or feeling scared, fear about something which may or may not happen in the future. So all these kinds of tendencies are unnecessary thoughts, and by repeating any mantra that appeals to you, you can actually have some kind of a regulation of the mind. Still you're not controlling the mind, and remember, it's not necessary to control the mind. It's like saying control your children. It's not like you're a jailer in a prison having all these prisoners that you have to make sure that they don't escape and they don't cause harm to the other prisoners, etc. We are not not all of us are living in such kind of environments all the time. So understand that this whole thing is, all these are very useful tools. If we try to restrict them too much, it's like a spring. The more you push, the more it will push back, and therefore don't try to control these things. Another misconception many people are asking is about desires. How can I control my desires? Again, it's not something to be done, and it's not something which is possible, because very act of living is a desire. If I don't have a desire to breathe in, I will die right now. So, and even if I say that I do not want to have any desire, that itself is a desire. You're trying to say how I can avoid this desire. That is another desire. So, ஆசைன்றது தப்பு கிடையாது. ஆசைன்றது எப்படி மனசில் வர எண்ணங்களை ரெகுலேட் பண்ணுமே தவிர அதை நம்ம கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணக்கூடாது. அதே மாதிரி தான் நம்மளுடைய ஆசைங்களை கூட நம்ம கண்ட்ரோல் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ட்ரை பண்ணக்கூடாது. அண்ட் அகெயின் தி வெரி examples of deities in the Sanatana Dharma is so beautiful, unlike many other Western cultures where it is, we say that being materialistic means you can't be spiritual, if being spiritual means you can't be materialistic. It's not like that. If you take almost all our gods, they are essentially people who have been either kings like Rama or king makers like Krishna, very wealthy people, and even many of our spiritual missions are doing remarkably well in terms of their finances. Baba Ramdev is one of the greatest entrepreneurs today, Acharya, along with Acharya Balakrishna, and whether it's Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev's Isha Foundation or Sri Sri Ravi Shankar's Art of Living, and they're all utilizing that money for appropriate purposes to benefit the society, especially the needy, in many different ways, be it in the education sector or the health sector, agriculture sector, so many sectors where there is a need, and there is environment, for example, the kind of tree planting that is going on with the Isha Foundation. So money by itself is not bad. The thought by itself is not bad. Desire by itself is not bad. How are you actually utilizing it? That's what makes it. Again and again, we bring that same simple example of a knife. In the hand of a surgeon, it's a scalpel. In the hand of a chef, it is for cutting the vegetables, making really delicious dishes. In the hands of a criminal, it could be a murder weapon. So it's only by what identity we are taking that each of these things makes a difference. So please, for heaven's sake, don't try to control your mind, don't try to reduce your desires, because the actual way in which we are constructed is to expand, which means that we want more and more, which means that the desires are not for this or that, but for everything. We want அத்தனைக்கும் ஆசைப்படுங்கிறது தான் நம்மளுடைய இது. அது வந்துட்டு நம்ம பாடி அளவில் பண்ணுறதுக்கு ஆரம்பித்தோம்னா அதனால் முடியாது. எனக்கு பாடிக்கே லிமிட் இருக்குது. இங்கே ஆரம்பிக்குது, இங்கே முடியுது, இங்கே ஆரம்பிக்குது, இங்கே முடியுது. இட்ஸ் அ பவுண்டட் என்டிட்டி பீயிங் ஃபிசிக்கல். தேர்ஃபோர் with that body, if we are trying to accomplish attanaikum asaipadu, you try to desire for everything, it is stupid. It's like trying to let's say use a bicycle to go all the way to the moon. You can go to nearby places. For other little farther places, you might want to use a motorcycle or a car or a let's say a ship if it's over water, or an aircraft if it's so very long distance you would like to fly in a shorter time. So you need to choose the appropriate, or if it's to the moon, you have to use a rocket to travel over there. So essentially what you're saying is use the appropriate thing. So if your desire, you have recognized that, because you would have seen in your own life example, we wanted to buy one particular kind of chair to start with the kind of money we had, that was possible. Then after some time we started earning a little more, we wanted to buy a sofa. Then we wanted to buy a really nice recliner, a couch or something like that. So then you slowly, even simple things like that, we as and when our capability to buy something increases, we keep on increasing. So that's the essential essential human desire to be better, whether it is in terms of lifestyle or in terms of education, in terms of knowledge, in terms of wealth, in terms of, let's say, housing, whatever it is, we want to be a little better than what we are right now, as long as our ability to earn is there. But you can, by observing how we have behaved, we can see that we always have a desire for a little more, little more. If we keep doing that, we will still not reach that infinite desire of ours, that we want everything. Because going step by step by step by step, it's like going to the beach and collecting one granule of sand at a time and thinking that sometime you will empty the beach of all its sand. It's as stupid as that, because it is infinite. It is so much. And by taking small steps, you can't do that. And by using these, you can take only small steps. It's only by recognizing that you are this, which means that you are already omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, that infinite desire of yours is accomplished. So saying that Attane Concept or my desire has never stopped, it's again and again I have desire for something else, either by looking at somebody or out of my own volition, I'm just thinking I should see, the better thing is to compare with yourself and try to be better than what you were yesterday. Tomorrow you should be better than what you are today, etc. The worst thing is to compare with others, because as we already discussed, they have a different question paper that they are answering, that what their life is. But eventually, even if we recognize that, yes, we keep wanting more and more, that is not possible with these. These are possible in finite steps you can go. But your ultimate thing is to get everything. That is possible only through the self. So this is an indirect way of the way we are created to think that, yes, self-realization is the ultimate. We want to get self-realization. Instead of saying that, we are saying we are desiring for everything. If you are desiring for everything, you cannot use these vehicles. You have to use the appropriate vehicle to reach that goal. Just like we have to use a rocket to go to the moon, not a bicycle. Similarly, you have to use the self to go to the self. That's why by the self, of the self, for the self, everything has to be done at that level. But as long as we are embodied, we keep coming back and trying to do things from that perspective, and things work out much more beautifully. You might face the exact same situation. It's not that just because you have become spiritual, the kind of atmosphere either in your workplace or in your let's say home, or even on the street while you're driving, are going to drastically change overnight. No, but how you relate to it. Instead of reacting to everything, we will start responding. We'll respond in a proactive fashion. So when that responsiveness starts, the way your mind feels, the way your intellect feels, the way your breath feels, everything undergoes a change, and you feel a much better person. And over time, this tends to change your environment also. The environmental changes will not happen overnight, but the environmental situations, even if they are the same, we are in a happy mood. Our happiness doesn't depend upon how that person behaves or this person behaves, or how much money I have, or what kind of a house I have, what kind of vehicles I have, how my children are studying. All these things, well, if all these things happen, well, fine. If they don't happen also, I feel happy, because the happiness is an inherent thing, and out of that happiness, I can work towards improving all of those situations. Suppose my child is not studying well, how I can improve that? I would be able to think in a much more holistic manner and a workable, practical manner if I'm operating from that out of my happiness, rather than out of sadness. Oh, my son is not studying well, or my daughter is not studying well, or I'm poor, or I'm not having a Lamborghini, or not having a villa. These kinds of things. It's not bad to have those desires, but are you working towards that, or are you just feeling sad about that? If you're working towards that, you should work from a happy state of mind. The more happy you are, things can turn out better. You would have observed also when you're cooking, for example, when you're cooking one day in a very sad mood, for some reason you're sad, the food taste that comes out gets affected by that. The day you're very happy and you're bubbly and you're cheerfully cooking, you will see that the taste also, it might be the same ingredients, you might put in the same proportion, the way you cook, but just that the kind of energy you infuse into it and the way you serve, all these things are affected by your internal state of mind. And so it's not only for your sake, but for the sake of your family members, for everybody else also. It's very essential that you're, as far as possible, in a happy state of mind. And when you start doing all these spiritual practices, you will see that it happens automatically. That yes, my happiness is actually my internal thing, internal state of mind. I have wrongly assumed that it is caused by those things. Those can be triggers, fine, but eventually it's a question of how you accept whatever state it is in right now and how you can make it better. And to be really competent, to have that capability to make it better, you should be happy. Unless and until you are happy, you will not have that ability to transform it so quickly and in such a big way. While you're sad also, you might still be doing certain things. Not that you will not be able to do any activity, but it will not be as effective. It will not bring out as good results as you would when you're in a happy state of mind. And when you're in a happy state of mind, the other thing is also the amount of resources you consume is very less. The amount of sleep we require, the amount of food we need to intake, all these things, even if that reduces, you're still energetic. How does that energy come? We think that it's only by eating food we get energy. No, by sleeping also, while we are sleeping, many of our damaged cells or cells which are not working properly are getting eaten up by the rest of the cells, what we call as autophagy, and that tends to create certain energy just by sleeping, or by mantra, or by invocations. All these things that we do, all of that create that kind of a energy for us to work or to do anything to in a transformative sense, rather than a daily routine sense. You're doing something much more bigger, which will have a long lasting effect on yourself as well as the others around you. We will probably stop with this today, and we'll have an interactive session. But before we start the interaction, we'll probably chant Aum 3 times, and then we will probably do one Shanti mantra also. Okay. Aum Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvina Vadhitamastu Mavid Vishavahai. Aum Shanti Shanti Shanti. So through this Shanti mantra, we are trying to make sure that our body, mind, intellect, the prana and the atma will all operate as a team. They will not have any conflicts. They will work together to produce a great human being that we actually are supposed to be. And this also means that between all of us and between the rest of the society, we will have that kind of camaraderie where we will not have unnecessary conflicts, and we will be in a good frame of mind so that together we can create a better world for us and for everybody. Thank you very much. Namaskaram.